Welcome to Round the Rink. I am your host, Supi, and I am here with Mark from Just the Stat Sports. Hey, Mark, how you doing? What I'm loving is that we're getting to the end of the NHL season, and man, it is exciting. A lot of teams they're competing for those wild card spots. I know the Eastern Conference is close. The Western Conference is even closer. I'm enjoying it. How are you feeling now about some of these games as we get into the end? Who do you think is starting to make a stand?
That's a great question, Sue, because I think that while we're getting really close to the playoffs,
Mhm.
there's still so much movement that can take place within playoff seedings that's going to really boil down and make an impact on who progresses and who doesn't, who has tougher series initially, and maybe who has an easier road or easier path to get to the Stanley Cup. Off the top of my head, I am a big Avalanche. I think the Colorado Avalanche made some fantastic moves during the season and in the offseason to really bolster up their team. I think the Dallas Stars are making a push right now. I am going to say it now. I think the Stanley Cup ends up in the Western Conference. I think the Western Conference is just a little bit better than the Eastern Conference this year. I love them to bring the cup to the West.
I love how you mentioned the Stars and the Avalanche. They have one player in common, Mikko Rantanen. He started with the Avs. He went to
Carolina.
he went to the Hurricanes, and
Yeah.
then he went to the Stars. They made that line that much better when you've got Hintz, you've got Robinson, you got Rantanen now. You know what I'm looking at is the Blues. They have made a charge up the standings, and now they're hot. What do you think of this? And do you think this gives them now a good chance? Because they're hot. And we've seen teams sort of get hot at the end of the season and they ride that into the playoffs. How are you feeling about the Blues going into the Stanley Cup playoffs?
The Blues they are one of the best teams at just progressing very quietly. They have a 9-game winning streak going right now. I mean, they've won their last 9 in a row. They've done it very quietly, done it very methodically, and they have beaten a lot of these big teams. They've beaten the Hurricanes. They've beaten the Oilers. So I think they're really starting to peak at the right time, and they're doing everything. They're in that last spot for the Western Conference wild card. They're doing everything they need to do to solidify that they don't drop down and they don't turn that into a race for the final spot. Coming down to a couple games. I love what the Blues are doing.
And we're talking about the Blues. We're talking about they beat Edmonton, who was in the who represented the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup last year. And now everybody's looking though at the Winnipeg Jets. They're the best team in the league. They're going to be competing with the Capitals for that President's Cup. They got Connor Hellebuck. They have Kyle Connors. Two of the best players. Do you think there is a team though in the Western Conference that can contend with Winnipeg and maybe take them over to get into the Stanley Cup final?
I do. And I actually think it's going to boil down to either Colorado or Dallas. And at the moment, I think Dallas is just playing a little bit better defense than the Avs are. I love the way that Dallas can shut teams down. Where Colorado's approach is, we're going to keep our foot on the offensive gas pedal, and you can keep up with us. Now they do have Blackwood and Wedgwood in goal for Colorado. It's certainly bolstered up their goalie defense. But I just think Dallas is the one team that Winnipeg is going to give Winnipeg the most challenge.
Yeah, because Dallas, right with Jake Ottinger and even Casey DeSmith, he's been
Right.
great. But they both been great in the net. I think right now they're on a streak where they're allowing under 2 goals per game over the last 10 games. And when you're talking about Colorado, we got to remember Wedgwood and Blackwood both were not the goalies at
Right.
the start of the season. Within, I believe, 2 weeks, they traded for both of those guys and they traded Rantanen. They made a complete change. And that's why, they're only a couple years removed from the Stanley Cup. So I think that they could definitely make a charge. Same thing with the Stars. They made it to the Stanley Cup, a few years back. But this group, I think, looks great, especially with getting Rantanen. I think they definitely look like a challenger in the Western Conference. But we've
Oh,
got to
yeah.
get to your picks for today. That's
Well,
why we're here.
I
So
just want to add. I just want to add one thing to that
Yeah.
because I think you look at Blackwood, his start with the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
You look at Wedgwood, and he was with the Predators. You see what defense and the people you have in front of those goalies, what that actually means, because both of these guys certainly improved the defensive and offensive lines in front of them, and they have just absolutely shined. So
I agree. Yeah, the defense necessarily wasn't great. I mean, Colorado has they have Nate McKinnon, who is the Hart Trophy winner. Cal McCarr, to me, one of the best defensive men, best two-way defensive men in the league. They had all the offense. The defense was lacking a little bit. They had to make that change, and it's just made them that much of a better team. But let's get into the pick for tonight. Let's make our friends a little bit of money. So, what are we going with for tonight?
fantastic. I'm going to start this skate off by looking at the Calgary Flames and the Utah Hockey Club game. I am taking the first period under 1.5 goals at even money or plus 100 odds. In Calgary's 37 road games this season, the over has only hit in 43% of those games, and it's only hit in 44% of Utah's 36 home games. And both goalies are above league average for keeping teams scoreless in the first period, which is another reason I love this play. However, Utah's Karel Vejmelka is on a 2-game streak of keeping teams scoreless in the first. So I love that they keep this under 1.5 goals in the first 20 minutes. I think it's a great spot to target a first period under. My next play is a 2-leg parlay for shots on goal. And we're going to take Florida's Alexander Barkov and Utah's Logan Cooley to each get over 1.5 shots on goal. Put it together, you get it plus 141. I love this look for both guys. Barkov has gone over in 6 of his last 6 road games. He's averaging 2.5 shots on goal against Montreal. And Cooley has hit this line in 7 of his last 8 games. He's gone over in all 4 games against Calgary, where he's averaging 2.3 shots on goal. Both guys have done really well against their matchups tonight. I love this shot on goal parlay, and that is your skate around the rink.
You mentioned Alexander Barkov. He's playing with Florida. They're the defending champs. They're good. They have Brad Marchand, who just in his first game he got that assist in overtime to help them win. They have Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk should be returning when the playoffs start. Do you have them as a favorite to get back to the Stanley Cup final, or if you don't, who do you think can make that run?
I think, listen, they're Stanley Cup champions. They are the ones that should be, and they've gotten a very tough team, made themselves tougher with the addition of Brad Marchand. I just think that they are the team to beat in the East. The Stanley Cup does go through Florida this year. I just don't think they can hold on to it. I think the West is going to win.
What do you think about Washington? Do you think Washington has a chance? Do you think they match up well with Florida? And do you think there's a way that do you have any other particular way they can advance?
I think Washington's biggest challenge is in their goaltending. They have Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. Both are very good goalies. Don't get me wrong. They're great goalies. They just haven't been as consistent as Bobrovsky has been. And I'm trying to remember the backup goalie down in Florida. It'll come to me in a second. I'm just thinking of it. But I think from a team perspective, I think Florida is the team to beat in the East. I think don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of good teams in the East. You got Washington. You got Carolina, who everybody wrote off after the trade deadline because they thought they were getting rid of everybody. They have actually done very well since that trade deadline. So I do think the East is going to bruise and beat each other up to get to that finals. And I think it's Florida's to lose.
Yeah, I like Florida this year. I do like Washington. Yeah, same thing. Carolina always dominant. New Jersey, they're always a good team. Problem is with Carolina and New Jersey, they're always good. You always love them going into the playoffs, and then they just have those games or two where they just kind of falter and kind of crumble, and then they don't win. But I agree with you. I do like Florida, the defending champs. Defense still really well. Bobrovsky, he's a magic. He's in his late 30s. He's a Vezina Trophy winner, and he's still playing like one. I think that plus how good those top lines are, I think they're still a good favorite to win the Stanley Cup trophy. Thank you, Mark. Remember, guys, go to justthestatsports.com, and here at Coach and Company, we wanted you to try it out. That's why for 30 days, we'll give it to you free. All you got to do is go to justthesportstats.com, code BTT30, and you'll get 30 free days.